we are continuing on in the book of Exodus. So last week, if you were here, and if you weren't, I'm going to give you a little catch-up really fast. Last week, we followed the story of two Hebrew midwives. Pharaoh calls these two midwives and says, when a Hebrew woman has a baby, if it is a girl, you may let her live. But if it's a boy, I want you to kill him. And these Hebrew midwives refuse to do this. They are loyal to God and they trust in God, and they are going against everything Pharaoh says, and they allow these babies to live, these boys to live. And then they insult Pharaoh and all of the women of Egypt in the process. They're willing to fight for justice, even at the expense of what could be their lives. Because of those two women allowing these male children to survive, we now have the story we're looking at today. Without their actions, we would not have this story of Moses that we are about to jump into this morning. So we are in Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 10 today. Now a man from Levi's household married a Levite woman. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She saw that the baby was healthy and beautiful, so she hid him for 3 months. When she couldn't hide him any longer, she took a reed basket and sealed it up with black tar. She put the child in the basket and set the basket among the reeds at the riverbank. The baby's older sister stood watch nearby to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river while her women servants walked along beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds, and she sent one of her servants to bring it to her. When she opened it, she saw the child. The boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. She said, "This must be one of the Hebrews' children." Then the baby's sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Would you like me to go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter agreed, "Yes, do that." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I'll pay you for your work." So the woman took the child and nursed it. After the child had grown up, she brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her son. She named him Moses, because she said, "I pulled him out of the water." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So a few months ago when I was working on planning this series of spicy ones, I posted on a clergy mom group that I'm a part of and said, who would you do? Like, if you were doing spicy ones, who would you think of? And one of the first comments on there was Pharaoh's daughter. And I was like, ooh, yes, I like that one. I like that one a lot. We have Pharaoh's daughter, who, by the way, is unnamed. We don't know her name. There's some Jewish midrash in which they name her, but we don't actually know her name. And so Pharaoh's daughter is royalty. I mean, and she is. Her dad is powerful. However, just because her father is powerful does not mean that she has power. Yes, she lives a pretty lavish life, but she is still an underling. She is still under the control of Pharaoh. She still is female in this time, and she is, she's not respected in this time. And so you have this girl who really probably has a very authoritative father. A father who is very strict, powerful, doesn't believe in coddling. Should we say it that way? Doesn't believe in coddling his children. And so she sees this baby, immediately knows this is a Hebrew child, says it out loud to the servants around her, this is a Hebrew child. She knows her father despises the Hebrews. She knows her father is trying to kill all these Hebrew male babies. And yet, she takes this child as her own. And yet, she uses her father's money to pay for this child to be nursed. She does not care who she upsets, her father being primary here. She is not afraid to make changes. She's not a follower. She's not afraid to powerfully negotiate with adults around her. I'm very interested. I wish the Bible recorded the conversation with her father about this child. Very interested in how that would be. She's not afraid to fight for justice. She feels sorry. She feels sympathy, empathy for this child. She is definitely what we would classify as a spicy one, fighting for justice, no matter who she has to bulldoze along the way. But as I was preparing for this sermon, as I was studying this text, I began to realize that she isn't acting alone here. She is not the only spicy character in these 10 verses. You have Moses' mother, who knows that she is not to have this boy, who hides this boy for 3 months to keep him safe, who places him in a river in a basket. And her placement, let's be honest, we know she placed it there on purpose, right? She didn't place it anywhere in the river. She placed it where she knew Pharaoh's daughter would be. She placed it where she knew the baby would be discovered. And not just by anybody. She, too, was willing to risk her life for justice. She, too, was willing to upset people to keep this baby safe. She, too, was a little spicy. And then you have Miriam, Moses' sister, who also isn't named here, but we know her name is Miriam later, who is standing by and just nonchalantly waltzes up to Pharaoh's daughter, who's bathing, by the way, and waltzes up to her and says, let me go find someone for you. Let me find a Hebrew woman who can care for this child for you. You know, Miriam's acting like, I'm doing you this huge favor. I'm going to go do this for you. And in all reality, she's getting her mom. She's getting this baby's mother. How gutsy it must be to then take this child back into their home and raise this child. How gutsy it is for Miriam to walk up to Pharaoh's daughter and say, let me do this for you. And if we keep reading on in the story, how unbelievably powerful for Moses' mother to give him back to Pharaoh's daughter. How unbelievably amazing is this sense and need for justice for this child that she's willing to give this child to be adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. And how amazing of Pharaoh's daughter to adopt this child as her own. To take a Hebrew baby into the home of her father who despises the Hebrew people. These 3 women here in this story, while they don't consciously know it, they are working together to bring about this justice for Moses. They are working together, each of them spicy in their own way, to allow Moses to survive and to grow. But it is so much more than just Moses, whose life they are changing. We know the story of Moses, and in just a few chapters, Moses is going to lead roughly 2 million Israelites to freedom. Because of these 3 women, each of them willing to take risks, each of them willing to be change makers, each of them willing to take up space and to disappoint the powerful, each of them willing to act for justice. Moses is able to grow and to thrive and to come and bring all the Israelites to freedom. As I was looking at this sermon, I realized that it isn't just Pharaoh's daughter who is spicy, but it is all of these women in this story, all 3 of them. Now, I'm a food lover. I love food. And Arby's has a sauce. It's triple pepper sauce. I don't know if any of you eat at Arby's, but triple pepper sauce, it's the best sauce in the world, okay? The reason it is so spicy and so good is because there are 3 peppers in it, right? Hence the triple pepper, 3 different kinds of peppers. If you put only one of those peppers in a sauce and put it on a sandwich, it's not really going to make that big a flavor change. But when you put all 3 of them on a sandwich, all of a sudden your mouth is on fire, in the good way. In the good way. The same is here true about these 3 women. If only Pharaoh's daughter had been spicy, there would be no baby for her to save. If only Moses' mother had been spicy, the baby would have died in the river. If only Miriam had been spicy, there would be no baby. Without all 3 of these women working together, there would not have been an explosion of change. And if we go back even further to last week, there are 2 other women that come into this equation. There are 2 midwives who, without their spiciness, there would be no Moses. These 5 women joining together, even without realizing it, bring about the freedom of 2 million folks. When I go to, most of the time people don't know Malvern or Quinamo, and they don't even know how to say Quinamo. And when they do talk about Malvern and Quinamo, they talk about us being little. Oh, you serve those little, I mean, how many people even live there? And that's the tone they use, by the way, right? We are often taught that bigger is better, right? To want more, that the more powerful you are, the more change you can bring about, that we want bigger houses, that we want more money, that we want bigger churches. Don't get me wrong, if more people came, I wouldn't be upset, okay? I'm not saying that. But that is what we're taught over and over again. But the truth is, these 5 women freed 2 million. Ron, how many people are here today? 35. All right, so 35 times 2, 70. That's correct math. That's the first time in the history of me doing math. 70 million people. If the 35 people here in this room committed to being spicy and to working together, if we do the God math that is in here, we are capable of freeing 70 million people. We don't need to be big. We just need to be spicy. We just need to be willing to fight for justice together. if one of us is spicy alone, it isn't going to impact the flavor of the world that much. But if we are all spicy together, it's going to create that good kind of burn. I am excited for us to be spicy together. For us to be change makers and innovators. For us to negotiate powerfully with those in power. For us to fight for justice together. For us to speak boldly and honestly about what needs to be done for the kingdom of God to come. 35. Being spicy together will change the world. May it be so. Amen.